Okay, so now I want to cover um, e- the rest of the experimental inking techniques, and we're going to continue with number 4, line weight, light, and shadow. And I want to show you what it looks like when it's done right. So notice that if we use line quality or line weight, we can use that to try to show where the shadow would be, okay, by making the shadow lines thicker, and then where the light would be hitting the object, it would be lighter. Okay, so we're going to try that now. Number 4, line weight, light, and shadow. Okay, so if you want to first draw them, just lightly sketch. We're going to be drawing an egg, and we're also going to be drawing an apple, and it doesn't have to be anything realistic or perfect or nothing like that. It's just something that we can use as a tool for drawing what we're going to do, okay? And then we're going to pretend that the light is coming from over here, right? And it's hitting this way. So then that tells us that the shadows have to happen on this side, all right? Okay, so all you have to do now is dip your brush into the ink, okay? And then something that you can do is just begin with a very thin line all the way around, okay? Just outline what you have. It doesn't have to be perfect, don't worry, okay? Okay, just lightly outline everything as thin as you can get it, okay? I'm probably going a little too fast. I think if I wanted to get it really thin, I'd have to slow down and go a little slower. And think about barely touching the surface, okay? All right, so now using a variety, a different kind of line quality, I can decide that over here is my shadow and make the shadow. And then I can make this line that's down here, right? Because if the sunlight was hitting this way, it would be darker on this side. I can make this part of the line a little bit thicker. And so just doing that, it already looks like, yes, maybe there is a light hitting this on that side. And then, so if the light was hitting the apple this way, then yes, our shadow would be on this side, right? And then it would definitely be much thicker. The line would be thicker down here. As well as on the leaf, like the bottom of the leaf would probably be thicker on this side, right? If we're trying to be consistent with our shadows, okay? So that's how you can use line quality to show light and shadow. All right, moving on. Our next, for the next one, sort of a repeater of number 1, is just taking the time to use the back of your brush to create just some lines. And what's cool about using the back of your brush, right, is that the line isn't that bold or thick or dark. And so if you ever just wanted to sketch, like say we're going to do the apple again, if you wanted to sketch with the back of your brush first, right, you can do that, and then you can commit to any lines you wanted to do. And I think that'll be helpful when we're working on drawing our still life, and I'm not going to allow you to use a pencil. So you can definitely use the back of your brush. That's helpful. Okay, so just cleaning it off. So that's 5. Okay, number 6 is pretty fun. For this one, you're gonna need a toothbrush. Okay, so toothbrush, and you're gonna be flicking or spraying the ink, flicking or spraying. Okay, so for this is how you would do it. You would take your ink and don't dip the brush in there. It's probably too big. Just lightly paint the top of the bristles with your brush like that. And then what you're gonna do is take your thumb and just run it across, and it's going to spray that ink. So if you want it to be really good on your first try, you want to use a lot of ink. Okay, and then work quickly, and you can spray it like that. Cool, huh? Okay, now that's that technique. And what's cool about this technique is you can also use it as a way to flick or create texture on a surface. But say that there's a part of your drawing where you don't want that part to get any of the flicking or spraying. You can definitely use some tape, and you can even cut the tape into a shape you want, right? Or you can use things like leaves or stickers or anything with an interesting shape, and you can use that kind of like as a stencil. So all you need to do is, once again, put some ink onto your toothbrush, okay, and then quickly flick. And the closer you get to the paper, the better. And yes, your thumb's gonna get ugly and black. So if you want to stop and put some gloves on before you do this one, you can definitely do that. I don't really care. So, because the ink washes off with soap and water, no big deal. Okay, so the more you do this, the nicer it looks. Clean your finger. And then what's cool is now I'll just remove these, and I have this really beautiful texture underneath. And you want it to be dry before you take the tape off, but you can already see, right? And blue tape works really good because it doesn't stick. It stuck a little bit, but not that much. It won't tear up your paper as badly as any other kind of tape. And I always peel it sort of at an angle like that. So there you go. That's number 7, stencil, and flicking. Okay, all right. I did one earlier to practice that probably came out a little bit better. All right, okay. All right, so moving on. Our next technique is using the ink, putting ink on the paper, and then using a straw to blow it around in order to create these very thin, sort of veiny lines. Now, if you don't have a straw, you could just hold the paper up to your face close and blow it around. You could do short spurts of air, but rest so that you don't get a headache. Okay, so that is number 8. Blowing ink with a straw. Okay. Here's the example I did earlier. Same thing. Super nice, thin lines. Okay. All right. Our next technique is just using the ink in a fun way, just to splatter it. And you can use the side of your finger, or you can just flick it, or you can put the paper on the floor and then drop some on it, right? Creates a really nice, fun technique. So something about inking and splattering and blowing the ink around, you definitely don't want to work on a nice surface. You want to work either outside on the concrete, or put some newspaper down so that the ink doesn't get on these surfaces. Okay, don't work really close to a wall or anything, because it's gonna end up on the wall. So something like this is not dry, so you're gonna have to set this aside and really let that dry. Okay. Okay. All right. So our next technique is smearing the ink. This one's very easy. Just put some drops of ink down, and you can use a piece of cardboard to smear it, or you can use a popsicle stick to smear it. It's kind of cool. Okay. All right. So that is 10. Oops. Spilled my alcohol. Smears. Rubbing alcohol. So I'm going to move this to the side because it's dripping. Okay. But yeah, kind of want to have a nice work area. Okay. Our next one is alcohol resist. I know in these times rubbing alcohol is precious, so we are only going to use a little bit. So go ahead and have like a little container and just put, I mean, that's a lot. You don't need that much. And what we're going to do is, with this dirty ink, dirty water and ink, we're going to paint a surface. And I think actually I need it to be even a little bit darker than that. So I'm just going to take some ink and put it on my palette here. And if you have a foam plate or a paper plate, that'll work too. Just going to put some ink there, and I'm going to add some drops of water to dilute it, because I don't want it to be completely black. I want it to have sort of like a light gray. Okay, there we go. That's perfect. So diluted the ink in water, and now I'm just painting the surface. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work quickly, dip my Q-tip into the alcohol and just spread it around. And you can see that the alcohol pushes the ink out, right? Pushes it away. So that's a super nice technique you can use. Okay. All right. Next technique is called sgraffito. Kind of looks like graffiti, but sgraffito, what you're doing is you can take a thumbtack, you're gonna score or scrape the surface. You can use an X-Acto knife. This is nice for creating textures on the surface. And then what you're gonna do is, with that same diluted ink, I'm just gonna add a little bit more water, you're gonna paint the surface. And what's gonna happen is those marks that you made with your sharp tool are gonna be revealed. Now you don't want to use just pure black ink because you won't be able to see your very thin lines. Okay, you definitely want to dilute the ink in water. Okay, and here's an example from earlier. This is what it looks like when it dries. Okay.